difficult to hail a cab in the city tonight with nearly 500 drivers on strike. Blue Line.
The company says drivers are not locked out and can continue taking rides if they choose. The drivers say they are prepared to strike.
It's increased.
The two sides have been without a contract since January.
It's been 10 years.
What happens when a city's lifeline suddenly collapses overnight? Imagine stepping off a train in Ottawa, expecting a cab, only to find silence, no taxis. No rides, just chaos. Nearly 500 drivers vanished from the streets, leaving families stranded, businesses scrambling, and an entire capital exposed. But this isn't just about taxis. It's about leadership, survival, and a country on the edge of paralysis. Chapter 1. Ottawa brought to a halt. What do you do when the very heartbeat of a city suddenly stops? Picture it. You're standing on a freezing Ottawa sidewalk, suitcase in hand, waiting for a taxi that will never come. The streets are eerily quiet. Families are stranded. Visitors shuffle around, confused. And nearly 500 drivers, the lifeblood of the city's taxi service, have simply vanished from the roads. This isn't just a traffic hiccup. This is what happens when ordinary workers are pushed to the breaking point. When leadership looks the other way, and when corporate greed collides with real lives. Ottawa isn't just inconvenienced tonight, it's paralyzed. And at the center of this collapse lies a decision so reckless, so tone-deaf, that it turned frustration into full-blown rebellion. Let's back up. The company running Blue Line taxi, Coventry Connections, dropped a bombshell on its drivers: stand fees. The monthly charge every driver has to pay just to pick up customers would jump by more than $100. Think about that. Drivers already scraping to pay bills are suddenly told, you're going to hand over more cash every month for the privilege of working. Not a raise. Not better benefits. Just a heavier burden. On paper, executives called it an adjustment. In reality, it was extortion. The numbers don't lie. Stand fees would rise from $435 to $550 a month. That's an increase of nearly 40% over 3 years, about $3.50 a day, for people already fighting against razor-thin margins. That's the kind of move that can decide whether you eat dinner or skip it. And the drivers had enough. By Friday afternoon, hundreds of cabs pulled off the roads. Nearly 500 Blue Line drivers shut down Ottawa. In one motion, they turned Canada's capital into a case study of what happens when workers are pushed too far, when corporate boards squeeze every last penny, and when government leadership stays silent in the face of collapse. Now, some might shrug this off as just a local labor dispute. It's just taxis, they say. But no. This is a mirror reflecting the deeper sickness running through the Canadian economy. Families stranded in the cold, tourists left with no way to get around, businesses losing customers. These aren't accidents. These are the ripple effects of a system built on weak leadership and misplaced priorities. Because here's the truth. While drivers were fighting for survival, where was leadership? Where was Mark Carney, the man who never tires of preaching global stability, sound economics, and promises of fairness? Silent. Nowhere to be found. And when leaders are silent, workers pay the price. Contrast this with how real leadership should look. In a different world, let's call it Trump's America for the sake of comparison, a labor crisis of this magnitude wouldn't be left to rot. Deals would be forced onto the table. Negotiations would happen at midnight if necessary. And both sides would be pushed to hammer out an agreement to keep the wheels turning. That's what strong leadership does. It prevents paralysis. But in Ottawa, paralysis is exactly what Canadians got. Strikes, rising costs, shrinking opportunities, and a government that acts more like a spectator than a protector. Families need taxis. Workers need fair pay. Instead, corporations raise fees, politicians shrug, and citizens get abandoned on the curb. Look at the bigger picture. Drivers haven't had a fair contract in over a decade. 10 years without meaningful updates. 10 years of being told to make do. And then, out of nowhere, a massive fee hike. That's not negotiation. That's a shakedown. And when drivers push back, they're painted as troublemakers instead of human beings trying to survive. And who benefits from this chaos? Companies like Uber and Lyft. Travelers left stranded at Ottawa's train station aren't waiting around forever. They're pulling out their phones, tapping a button, and calling a rideshare. Why? Not because they prefer paying extra fees, but because they know the car will show up. Reliability beats loyalty every single time. And that's the tragedy. While Canadian taxi drivers are forced to absorb crushing costs, foreign tech companies swoop in and eat up the market. Ottawa doesn't just lose its cabs, it loses the livelihoods of hundreds of local families, the stability of a homegrown industry, and the trust of citizens who just want reliable service. This isn't leadership. This is surrender. Surrender to corporate greed. Surrender to globalist policies that put big business over working people. And while executives sip champagne in boardrooms, drivers sit in parking lots, united but unpaid, their voices echoing into a political void. One driver put it bluntly, "We have a strike mandate of 93%. That's not a small rebellion. That's an overwhelming declaration of anger, frustration, and determination." Nearly every driver stood up and said, "No more." And yet the silence from leadership speaks louder than their protest signs. So here we are. Ottawa is stranded. A city without taxis. Families waiting in the cold. Tourists confused and irritated. And behind it all, a story that exposes the cracks in Canada's foundation. This is bigger than taxis. This is about whether workers in Canada have a voice, whether leadership still means standing up for citizens, or whether the nation has accepted a future where corporations dictate the rules and workers are left begging for scraps. And make no mistake, what's happening in Ottawa tonight is a warning. It's a signal flare shooting up into the dark Canadian sky, telling the world that the system is failing. A city without taxis is inconvenient. A nation without leadership is dangerous. And unless something changes, tonight's chaos in Ottawa won't be the last. It'll be the first domino to fall. Chapter 2. Montreal on the brink. If Ottawa was the warning shot, then Montreal is the earthquake waiting to hit. Just days after nearly 500 taxi drivers walked off the streets in the capital. Canada's second-largest city is staring down its own nightmare, one that could grind daily life to a standstill for millions of people. Here's what's coming. 2,400 unionized maintenance workers at the STM, Montreal's transit authority, are preparing to walk out. And when they do, buses and metro service will go dark 3 days a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. Think about that for a second. 3 days out of every week, one of the busiest, most vibrant cities in Canada will lose its ability to move. That's not an inconvenience. That's paralysis. For the ordinary worker who relies on buses to get to the factory floor, it means missed paychecks. For the student trying to reach classes at McGill, it means walking, waiting, or giving up. For businesses, it means fewer customers walking through doors. And for families, it means chaos, pure and simple. And yet, the reason behind this strike is painfully familiar. Workers pushed to the edge, fed up with an insulting offer, and left with no choice but to fight back. Management tossed a 12% wage increase over 5 years onto the table. Sounds decent at first, until you remember inflation. Prices climb every month, rent eats more of each paycheck. Groceries bite harder into wallets. That raise is nothing more than a cruel joke. Workers aren't greedy. They're desperate. But instead of leadership stepping in, instead of real solutions being hammered out, what do we hear from those in charge? Excuses. Platitudes. Please check our website for service updates. That's not leadership. That's surrender. A website notice isn't going to get a nurse to the hospital for her night shift. It isn't going to help a single mom pick up her kids across town. This is Canada in 2025 cities on the edge of collapse, essential services crumbling, and leaders hiding behind talking points. Ottawa is paralyzed. Montreal is about to follow. And across the nation, citizens are asking the same question. If our leaders can't even keep buses running, what exactly are they good for? The irony here is sharp. Montreal is a city built on movement. From the metro cars rattling beneath its streets to the endless stream of buses weaving through neighborhoods, the transit system is its bloodstream. Take that away and the body weakens fast. 3 days a week of shutdowns will bleed the city dry. And yet, the people tasked with keeping that bloodstream alive, the maintenance crews, are treated like disposable parts. The government should be scrambling to stop this disaster. Instead, it shrugs. Compare that with what happens under strong leadership elsewhere. In the US, during moments of labor crisis, tough negotiations were forced onto the table. Deals got made. The country kept moving. That's what decisive leadership looks like. You might not like the style, but you can't deny the results. In Canada, paralysis, hand-wringing, and endless delays. And here's the bigger truth. This isn't just about taxis in Ottawa or buses in Montreal. This is about a pattern. Postal workers, rail employees, truckers across the board. Trust between workers and management has evaporated. Contracts drag on for years. Inflation eats wages alive, and workers are told to be patient while corporations thrive. It's no wonder they're walking off the job. What's surprising is that it didn't happen sooner. Let's call this what it is: a collapse of leadership. Ottawa was a warning sign. Montreal will be the confirmation. And if Canada's leaders don't wake up soon, this won't stop with 2 cities. Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary. Every major hub could see its own version of the same crisis. Because when workers realize they've been abandoned, strikes aren't accidents. They're inevitable. Picture the scene in Montreal just days from now. Monday morning rush hour. Thousands of commuters pouring into the metro station only to find locked gates. Bus stops lined with frustrated citizens staring at timetables that mean nothing. Uber's surging prices to 3, 4, even 5 times the normal fare because demand has spiked. And in the middle of all that, silence from leadership. Excuses instead of answers. This isn't just bad luck. This is failure. Failure to protect the workers who keep cities alive. Failure to secure the industries that make daily life possible. And failure to act before chaos takes over. And the saddest part? People are starting to accept it. Citizens are adapting to failure as if it's the new normal. Check the website for updates. Plan ahead for delays. That's the language of decline. That's the vocabulary of a country lowering its expectations because it no longer believes leadership can deliver anything better. Meanwhile, foreign corporations circle like vultures. Just as Uber and Lyft are eating away at Ottawa's taxi industry, private alternatives will swoop into Montreal's chaos. Who pays the price? Canadian workers stripped of bargaining power. Canadian families paying more for unreliable service. Canadian cities drained of self-reliance. This isn't just a story about strikes. It's the story of a nation unraveling one city at a time. Ottawa first, Montreal next. And after that, anywhere workers decide they've had enough. The real question is simple. How much longer will Canadians accept this? How many more days of stranded families, empty promises, and collapsing services will it take before leaders are forced to act? Because here's the truth. Weak leaders break countries. Strong ones save them. Right now, Canada is staring into the abyss, and the abyss is staring right back. And if nothing changes, Canadians better get used to waiting on cold sidewalks, staring down locked metro gates, and wondering why no one in power seems to care.